Hello.
And we're back. It's been a while since we uploaded because Alex was in China.
Yes.
How was China?
Man, China was great. I thought that this is going to be a country full of contrast, and it was. My learnings are Chinese people are very nice. They're very polite. Sometimes I get stopped on the street and they just ask, like, hey, where are you from? It's like, oh, I'm from the Netherlands. It's like, oh, welcome to China. Have a nice day. I'm like, where in the world would anyone do that? But also, I ate so much stuff, so much interesting stuff, like crickets, cicadas, pig heads, and whatnot. They also sold frogs in stores for $1.50. So you can pick your frog in like a fish section.
Which area was it?
What?
Which area was it?
I went to Beijing. Then I went to my friend's Chinese wedding in Laisi. And then I went to Xi'an. Xi'an is apparently a very old city that was the first capital of China for 1,300 years.
Huh.
So quite a long time. So it was great. I highly recommend for everyone to go to China because it's amazing. It's underrated and it's not as scary as everyone says it is.
Oh, no. Chinese people are like anybody else, man.
They're a little bit, particular on things. But besides that...
Which country isn't? Jesus.
That's true. But I had a great time. And we are jumping into episode 9.
And episode 9?
Statistically, what was it? 90% of people who start podcasts fail after episode 5.
Something like that.
So yeah. We're doing very well.
Not bad. We've still got this train going, and the list of topics you showed me yesterday gives me further hope that I would have to think of new ones, but...
Look, we're doing it for half a year. There's such a long list of things we want to talk about still, so I'm quite excited.
Today's main topic is going to be competitive analysis and research.
Yes, and it's very interesting because we realized that we both prepared 2 different, let's say, approaches to the same topic, which I am very curious to hear.
On our website, I did a whole bunch of articles on competitive analysis, for example, so I didn't want to do it the same way.
Fair.
I've got to give some new content.
That's also good.
And still, before that, we still have the news of the day.
What's your weird news?
I've got a study.
Tell me.
This isn't really weird news, but it's interesting for anybody who is interested in these sorts of things, and I know you are. Study on the use of the word AI in marketing.
Oh my God.
Man, it's not looking good for the AI boys, honestly.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, this study had 1,000 respondents of different industries and different places and with consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is they were testing new messaging by adding the word AI to software and hardware and different products.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the various people who were ostensibly going to use this product both as a business and as consumers what they thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
And roughly, it was very negative. Quote from this study, when AI is mentioned, it tends to lower emotional trust, which in turn decreases purchase intentions. We found emotional trust plays a critical role in how consumers perceive AI-powered products. And in an experiment, the researchers found that a group of participants were far less likely to purchase a smart television when its description included the words artificial intelligence. A separate group was far more likely to buy it when the words were omitted. Yeah. So that's I think there's a genuine distrust of Silicon Valley that's permeating through AI. And a lot of people do think it's a bit of a gold rush, like a lot of other bubbles. But, I mean, look, I have my complicated feelings about whatever wave of technology comes through Silicon Valley that's just like a speculative investment. AI has its functions. I use it occasionally. I was also listening to a Better Offline with Ed Zitron podcast about the modern tech industry. And he had a professor on. I forget the professor's name, sadly. Otherwise, I would credit him. And he was like, AI, if it's continually pushed for the things it can't do, which is what Silicon Valley is doing, people will lose trust. There are things it can do. It's very good at like getting to the gist of certain things. It's good at summaries up to a certain extent. And I know there's a lot of content people who get very mad at me if I say that, because they're like, I never use it for it. And I know, but it can generate bullet point lists and make things easier and rearrange your sentences in a nice way if you need it to. And those are the uses that it's very good at. But then when they start promising heaven and earth to everybody, and it can't deliver on that, people lose faith. But yeah, you have your own thoughts on this.
There was very cool. Someone told me not so long ago that subsidies that the governments give out to startups and companies rose something like 70% if it has the word AI in it.
Yep.
So governments, so we as users and people who actually work in IT, I guess what the professor was saying, that we lose trust in it because we're like, oh yeah, this is not really working that well. But the governments, because they're always slow and kind of lacking behind the whole industry, they're like, whoa, there's this new technology. Let's sponsor everyone and give subsidies. For example, dentistry and AI. How is that connected? There was a lot of courses and AI, or development courses, development in terms of real estate development courses and AI. So basically, if you would say, I just do real estate courses and trainings, you would not get the subsidy from the government. But if you would say development and AI, you have a 70% higher chance of getting a subsidy from the government for that.
Yeah, but that's just generally how a lot of neoliberal governments work. What they tend to do is they're always looking to invest in companies rather than invest in public goods. So AI, if a company tacks it on, they're like, oh, that's a flashy new thing that people are investing in. It's like the space race in the 60s or whatever. But governments also have another interest. AI is really good at analyzing large chunks of data, and when governments, their main interest is always how do we monitor and track all of these transactions, people's behavior, and all of this stuff. This is nothing conspiratorial that I'm saying. They kind of just do that, and forgive me if this sounds cynical, but yeah, the CIA is going to be using it anytime.
Pretty sure they're already using, because there was some sort of research that said that people are losing track, or when it's more than 4 or 5 variables that they have to analyze at the same time. And AI can do 50, 100 at the same time. So it can see correlation between things much better than people. And there's this phrase, analysis paralysis. When you open the data, you're like, what am I looking for? Yeah. As soon as it is a little bit more complicated or too many data points, we just fall into analysis paralysis because you don't know what you're searching. And that's where AI, again, has a very good kind of competitive twist of using it, because then you don't have to think, you don't have to spend so much time. You just plug it in, ask the thing, and it gives you that.
It does, but continuously what researchers have found is whenever you give it new variables that human beings have not studied before, AI falters because it doesn't have the reference data that it can use to actually derive new conclusions from stuff it's never seen.
Of course.
That's like the mark of sort of human intelligence versus AI, where we can look at a variable we've never seen investigated and then come to a conclusion. And AI can just kind of look at a variable, compare it to something that it's seen from human beings before, and have a guesstimation of it in those situations.
There was a nice Netflix TV show about that AI is biased, or AI is racist, because it was fed the data from the past.
Yeah.
So it's the same example. But if we're talking about more simplistic, everyday things,
the catchy way of saying that is AI is racist, that's the clickbait headline version of it. The real story there is most AI research is done in the West, in Western countries, predominantly white countries. So all of the training data is going to have that. That's a failure on part of the industries and what they think valuable data is. But if you want to call it racist, yeah, sure. Knock yourself out. In my opinion, there's a less polemic way of approaching that, and saying, they don't have the complete data, and we should boost people who aren't white into those industries, maybe, so they can say, hey, this thing is lacking.
I think that's why I'm skipping to the next topic. That EU just released an AI Act because of that.
Yeah.
It was this week, I think, and they said that in 2025, the prohibition of unacceptable AI practices will come to effect. This includes banning AI that manipulates and harms people, social scoring systems, and biometric categorization.
Yeah.
That's the AI is racist, I think. Then by 2025, 1 year, basically later, they want to, the act will basically start. And EU states will have to establish an AI authorities for oversight of governance. So you're like, are you using AI? Yes, show us how, show us what it is. The same it was with GDPR, I think, when they said we're going to enforce it and you have to have specific rules within the company and as well on the websites or any software company, how you're going to delete the data or protect the data of your users or if you're going to encrypt it. So here they said the transparency and disclosure rules of general purpose AI systems will now apply. So chatbots, deepfakes, emotion recognition, which was actually just released by OpenAI when they said, we're rolling out a new feature, advanced voice mode for ChatGPT. So some users actually saw that if you talk to it and you're sad, it will understand that you're sad. And I think this is what by 2025, again, 1 year later, maybe 1.5 years later, that the EU regulation says, oh, well, we need transparency about systems that will be kind of recognizing your emotions. But it's already released. But they say we will regulate it 1.5 years. This is crazy. And by 2026, so basically 2 years in from now, from 2024, the whole act will be applicable, including obligations for high-risk AI systems in certain categories like education, employment, profiling, but excluding high-risk systems under EU product safety laws. So by this date, each member state should have at least one regulatory sandbox operational, which allows the testing AI systems under supervision. So for me, what this as well explains that if you send a CV, for example, you're a company that is a hiring company, so you gather 1 billion of CVs, and then what you do, you're like, AI will look at all the variables that the human will not be able to kind of connect together and make a decision. And this is what they want to control as well. But I think in the US, they use these systems for many years now.
It's also, when I look at things like ChatGPT, it's not one discrete set of protocols. It's a lot of protocols I saw a lot of years ago jumbled together, like SMMRY or various calculation tools. It's got a lot of that in it. And like you said, they've been using them for years. And now it's just been dubbed AI when it's all been bundled together. There was a lot of technologies that didn't used to be called AI, but now it's suddenly a problem because, it's all the rage to talk about AI.
So what the last part, by 2027, they said that the AI Act will be in force. So that's 3 years down the line. 3 years ago, we didn't know about ChatGPT. And now they're saying only in 3 years, they will be actually fully regulating that. And that additional rules will apply, of course, in certain AI systems that are already regulated by EU law, but such as those that are used in medical devices, industrial machinery, toys, cars, safety components, and regulated products. So they will only start regulating products by 2027. I'm pretty sure car manufacturers or any other product related, because what was the rabbit? It's a product, but it's already released and it's already gathering data. Of course, it's kind of
like nobody's using that one. That might be a bad example.
Yeah, but however, we already have a product that is mass scale because they said 100 million people or something ordered 100,000. I don't know, but basically, it's already happening, and EU says, "Oh, in 3 years we'll actually control it." This is a little bit weird because I think now is where the real scams are going to start. And I learned while I was in China, they already live stream AI generated salespeople on TikTok. So basically, there's a lady who talks and sells things, and it's a script, and she's not real, and no one knows that. This is insane. So for me, this is very weird. How again, governments are very late. How it's already products are being released, but the EU Act is not going to be taking seriously until 3 years past.
Specifically in terms of Europe, I was listening to this talk by the economist Yanis Varoufakis, and he was talking about how Europe is in kind of is being very slow about cloud capital. China and America have all these robust software and data gathering systems, and they understand that data is a sort of currency on its own. And Europe doesn't really seem to see it that way. They see it only as a danger. But part of that is because they came into it very late. So now it's suddenly, we need to shut down all these other people gathering our data and turning us into sort of their consumers. And I partially agree with them on that. But then there's this other idea where cloud capital might just be a bubble. AI might just be a bubble, so it's nice to take it slowly. You never know. I'm not, before the AI and cloud capital people come after me with pitchforks again. We don't know. We've been assured the previous wave of technology was going to revolutionize everything, and you're not going to have money anymore. And then it was like, oh, nobody's going to make art anymore. They're going to make them on decentralized platforms only. And, none of that really happened in the coming years. And all signs are that it's it's plateaued. It's, if not on a decline, it's plateaued. But I don't know what to think about that, because on the one hand, it's nice to be cautious before implementing new technologies. The EU approach is something that very much resonates with me, but at the same time, you want your economy to collapse? you should invest in sort of electronic data gathering and so on. And there's wanting us to shift towards cookieless tracking and things like that.
In China, by the way,
Yep.
on coming back to your hey, we're not going to have paper money anymore. In Europe, they had a survey about switching to central bank digital currency, and it did not pass through. I mean, they are talking about it, but it did not pass through. Why? Because more than 51% of Europe still uses cash.
Yeah.
In China, they use Alipay and they use WeChat. I got some money, obviously exchanged some money when I was going there. Useless, man. Some people, they look at the 100, they're like, oh, it's fake. And seriously, because they never seen such fresh money, or it just looks like fake because because I don't know why. They just never seen some bigger number cash.
I mean, over here in the Netherlands, sometimes you can't do anything if you don't have a PIN card.
Right? But here we have a card. They use their phone.
Oh, yeah.
So everywhere is paying by phone. I saw some hobos on the street, and they have a QR code. So you scan to donate to them. You say, because anywhere in the Netherlands, like, oh, do you have some money, like some spare cash? And I don't, because I use a card. And there, they basically pull out, because paying with this Alipay, you just scan the QR code and click how much you want to pay, or they tell you how much if you're bargaining. Even on the market, I was in the flea market, I was bargaining, and we bargained, and then he's like, scan my QR code and input the money we bargained on. What? Hobos use QR codes for people to donate. This is where China is, right? And this is where, when I came back, I'm like, actually, it was very comfortable. But then again, that's where people think the Chinese spying on you, but they are.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not the government, it's the banks. You should pick your poison.
That's true. Last year, I think I've been to a TAW conference, and Rabobank was there. And they said, we have this new UX in the banking app, where we will know if you're going to move out of the house, if you're going to buy a couch, if you want to buy study books, and we'll give you recommendations or discounts we found somewhere. So they will already forecast and predict your behavior based on the data you have. Yep. But this is already a thing in China for like 5 years as well. So anyway, it's I feel that some countries are actually, China, great example, because it's very fresh as well in my mind. They are living in the future a little bit, but also it's a big contrast, because when hobos don't have a place to live, but they have a QR code to donate, that's weird. So, do you want to move to the main topic while we're talking about AI, how market analysis and competitive research is being done by companies or not done in this case?
Sure. Before that, I wanted to talk about the Perplexity scandal.
Oh, tell me.
So, Perplexity suddenly caught fire from all these news publications who were saying that it just wholesale published their articles as part of its AI summaries with little to no change. Mm-hmm. And a whole bunch of different publications took them to task.
Perplexity, if someone doesn't know, it's a research AI tool. It's pretty much ChatGPT, because ChatGPT can go around the internet if you give it a link and search for things. And Perplexity is an AI search tool that if you ask it to find sources or summarize something, it will also mostly do the research for me. It always summarizes things in a very nice way.
Yeah. The publications in question are both Forbes and Wired magazine. So
I'm pretty sure they use Gen AI anyway to write their articles now.
They do, but this was more of a case of not even paraphrasing, just wholesale copy-pasting their stuff right into it.
But they source it anyway, right?
It was unsourced.
That's weird.
That's the main issue, though. that it wasn't sourced. The language was taken directly as part of their summaries. And this was, they gave a bunch of different sources, but not theirs, but the language was all taken from those companies' articles.
Okay, I think then it makes sense because I use Perplexity quite a lot, and they always have a source.
Yeah, I know they do have a source, but how many sources do they actually use versus how many do they cite?
That's a good one.
The Forbes CEO sent an actual letter to the Perplexity CEO.
Yeah. Okay, was it fixed?
I mean,
Is it a lawsuit?
well, they've sent a cease and desist for that particular topic, I suppose. You can't say send a cease and desist for everything.
That's also true.
But this is going to be an issue. If there, you know how the tech people always talk about the free content on the internet.
Oh my God! Remember that YouTube guy on the next web conference?
Yeah. So basically, that's the mentality of a lot of Silicon Valley people. They're just like, it's free, I can take it. And then
YouTube doesn't have any value. Videos are free to use for everyone. I can use Mr. Beast ads anywhere I want for my product. Jesus Christ, that guy pissed me off.
Wired said it discovered a secret IP address scraping the content in question. So they've got their guns out for Perplexity.
Wow, talking about data protection law.
Yeah. I mean, this is what the EU is. Well, this isn't what they're worried about, but this is like a example of what they would be worried about.
Should put it in their act for 2037.
Yeah.
Maybe in 15 years they'll catch up to this problem.
Anyway, my digression aside, we should get back to the main topic.
Main topic, market analysis and competitive research. I wanted to piggyback on the speech we heard again during the conference that startups fail to spend time on market research. The number one failure of startups is the product is not needed by anyone. 40%. Imagine how many millions, billions that is when basically, it's like many startups, they basically build products that don't solve any significant problems for large enough markets. And understanding market needs ensures that the product that is basically addressed solves actual real pain points. So this comes back to that market analysis is important and competitive research as well. Because if you take a product that actually works in China, it might not work here.
Yep.
If you take a product that works in the European Union, it might be already very late to implement it in the Silicon Valley or China in this case.
Amazon versus Bowl.
Right. So competitive research as well is important, I think, when you do market entry. Because we were helping some startups, and some startups, they build an app, a website, a logistical fulfillment center. They have so much stuff that they figured out, and then they're like, our sales are actually not working very well. And then they never spend actually research on, there's competitive research when it comes to, because I'm a marketeer, there's market research and there's marketing research.
Yeah.
And those two, I feel they correlate, but they're different in what you got to be doing in terms of execution.
Yeah. They're different sides of the same dog. But one of the core things you said for me was a large enough market. A lot of people think, oh, this idea just won't work. No. You've targeted at mass media, at the mass audience, and it should have been targeted at a niche, and you should have set your expectations lower. This happens all the freaking time, where somebody spends a lot of time in one group of people who have a very specific need and just extrapolate that onto everyone. Other people might be like, I don't need a dog bed.
Right, but they're also... A lot of the times I feel it's not just a feeling based on what I saw while as well researching this, that they do not understand the full potential. They, as you said, they do the niche, they do a little bit of research. Like, you know what? My grandma needed it. Imagine how many grandmas there in the Netherlands. Yeah, dude, but like not everyone is going to use that. So you are overestimating the actual market need of your product. So that's where markets and, well, basically competitive research. I think if you don't do market research, because that can be a little bit big to grasp, you should do competitive research because that's a little bit easier and lower because you can look at what the other companies do, how they're dealing with it. Maybe you can look at the tax office, how much tax they pay, because sometimes that's public data. So you can understand at least how much money they're making or how much they're...
Yeah, in fact, I think you should probably do competitor research first. A good example of this is so many tech companies just jump into the next big trend, and they're like, "Was this gonna make money?" And then they just bail out of it really quickly. So many companies were like, "Oh, we're gonna invest in VR headsets." Like nobody's talking about the Apple Pro right now. You know, the headset at all. They jumped in, and the market was already quite saturated. Consumers want it, but you can't charge $3,000 for it. Yeah. Even and the people who want it already have it, and the rest of us were kind of like, we're waiting for somebody to actually do the development beyond that, like the lower vertical integration where there's actually apps where you work upwards, build the technology up. Nobody would have bought a phone if there were no apps on it, and so they're all thinking backwards. They're all trying to be like the top of the pile. They want to start at the start of the production chain.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to think that way, but also they forget that when they actually get there and release the product, your technology might also be low, like very low. I mean, the technology might also be very outdated and not really being used anymore.
Yeah.
So that I think that happened with NVIDIA, right? So they're the ones who were releasing products. They like every year there's a new video card. Every year there's like, oh look, we improved 300% our chipsets. Yeah, and then if you started developing a product last year, this year you're already very late. So you need to really have a very quick product development.
Also, with the NVIDIA case, someone made the argument that like, oh, you've improved the chip, but what does improve mean? Do people need that improvement?
Speed, yeah, but you'll find use cases for that, I think, if you had...
You will on like... NVIDIA sells mass market, though.
Yeah.
The average person is not going to find a use for the highest quality GPU.
That's also true, but I can see that like phones. Oh, we make your phone smaller, thinner, more sturdy, so that's where you can use less space and more power in a phone or some sort of tech.
When they proposed Moore's Law, you remember that? Moore's Law was the idea that technology will either get 2 times as fast or half as big, Okay, this was proposed about cell phones because that's what was happening at the time. And then Moore's Law isn't really a law, it's just kind of a tautology within technology that they talk about. And it was useful for the time because that's what was happening. Flip phones came out and phones got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then smartphones came out, they were much faster and much more powerful. But now what you're seeing is we've kind of settled into, in my opinion, this is purely my opinion, a sort of a stagnation in what you can do with it. If you make my phone any smaller, I can't watch YouTube on it. If you make it too big, it can't fit in my pocket.
Foldable phones.
So I think we've hit kind of a mean in terms of that. The big idea, I wanted to buy a Fold, just because I like reading on my tablets and my other technology. So that would have been handy for me, but those technologies are so expensive right now. We'll see what happens with them, But yeah, Moore's Law was an interesting version of this.
There's also sometimes bad timing, though. So it's not only about, hey, you're late, but you might be ahead of the whole crowd, and you build something like Alexa, for example. I think Alexa was released back in 2014, and when it was released, I think also a lot of SEO experts, because that's what I did as well back then, they said that, hey, now everyone's going to be using voice search, and now everyone's going to be, all the mobile phone searches are super quick, and everyone's going to be using it. And when you optimize websites, you actually have to consider voice search. And what actually happened, that in 2014, well, everyone obviously bought it, but the technology behind it sucked. It was impossible to recognize, but now the idea is still there. The tech caught up to it. And who's using it? Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha, everyone was like 10 or 12 and under, because they don't use keyboards anymore. They use touchpad. They don't use smart TV to switch channels or type in with this glitchy, arrow on a TV or anything. What they do, they use voice search. So
no, I have friends who are so bad at typing, and I feel like I'm in a different generation.
This is a great example where, again, kids, my sister, my cousin, basically my sister's kid, he used that. I remember when I was visiting them, he used that remote control. I'm afraid of using that. I have that at home. but I don't use it. I don't know why. I'm like, I could just type in, yes, it's going to take me 2 minutes to scroll through this stupid remote control.
I have one of these for my for my Google for Chromecast, and I prefer typing in. Right?
That's what I do, but they don't do it. And the thing was, as well, I heard one story. A guy as well has a kid, and every time he's like, "Oh, my kid always searches on my smart TV using voice activation." So what he did, he proposed to his kid to try Gen AI. He's like, "Hey, do you want to create your own comic book?" So the kid started creating his own comic book, and he had to type. And after like 2 or 3 days, the critical feedback of the kid was, why can't I talk to a AI generation tool? So it basically generates things I say, and if I like it, it continues to build on it. If I don't like it, it disregards what I kind of told them. So basically using a microphone or a remote control to talk to, what was it? I think they used... what was the tool? One of the ones that is generating right now is used very much by... oh my god, I forgot what is the actual name of the tool. Anyway, so one of the image generation AI tools. So can you think that before, like 10 years ago, when they released this technology, no one even thought that, so, it's going to be the next thing. It wasn't. And now, actually, 10 years later, the younger generation caught up. And also, what I wanted to mention is that using data to improve the technology or improve the market research. So what happened, for example, in Europe, they sometimes do not do, even like I want to talk about all the tech companies, they do not do proper market research or marketing research based on data. They do it a lot of heritage. So they're like, well, what would people think? Let's develop a product or fast fashion. Let's develop something that people will wear. It's going to be sustainable, created within the European Union, price tag 300 euros. And again, I'm piggybacking on China. China has very quick fashion industry that is like super robust. So you can buy all kinds of trash and garbage online with one click, simple checkout. And we always kind of complain that, Chinese low-quality products and so on. Yeah. But the thing is, the industry of fast fashion and low-quality garbage products is much higher. For example, Alibaba has higher revenue than GDP of the Netherlands. Yeah. Why? Because they sell crap that is super cheap, and they don't care. And why they sell crap that we think that people will not care, which they do care. Temu is a great example. When Temu entered the US and European markets, people just like, it was number one application on Google Play, and people were downloading and buying useless crap that they don't need. Why? Because that's what the data says, that they will buy it and they need it if they don't need it, but they have this emotional response of buying it. So when it comes to market research, you have to use a lot of data to actually implement things rather than piggybacking on your morals sometimes. And that's where European Union thinks, or in Europe, a lot of companies say, we're green, we're sustainable, we're responsible. No one gives a shit. In China, everyone's like, buy, fast fashion, 2 cents for a avocado slicer mechanism or something.
You say that, but China's the number one investor in sustainable technologies, which is going to come into my point about market research that they did really well.
I have an opinion as well about that.
Oh, I mean, their cities are smog-filled, don't get me wrong.
Not that much, by the way, but as it was before, because there are a lot of EVs and stuff, they really banned that. But besides the fact... yes, they do they do have like these green points. Why? Because big companies like Apple, well, not Apple, I mean, bad example, but bigger companies that are outsourcing in China, greenwashing in China is cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
That's the main point, because I saw an example. It was like an avocado slicer or like some sort of slicer in the kitchen, like you like slam it, just like, oh, my apple is now sliced. That thing costs in China 4 cents.
Yeah.
And in Europe, they sell it for 10 euros. So what do these companies do that are actually not so sustainable? They go back to China and they buy their greenwashing points that they basically tell the rest of the world, like, we're so green, we're paid.
But even aside from that, the point I was going to raise is, for those who don't know, I work with a company that does a lot of sustainable products marketing and products sales and blah, 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 right? We were like a intermediary between people who sell that stuff, and we build websites for them, and we manage our own websites and try to get them to organically click on that stuff. Long story short, but what we find increasingly is I work in the UK sector, so what happens is the Chinese solar panels have flooded the market, and they're far cheaper because they're produced far cheaper. The UK government has all these grants that you can use to make them even cheaper, so you can install them on your own. These apply widely to all solar panels, but the flood of cheaper Chinese panels is what installers buy, because then they get like a bit more revenue out of that, you know. And China knew this. They understood not just that, oh, the consumer demand is a thing. They were like, consumer demand is going to go up because the government proposed this grant that can give consumers a hell ton of solar panels and solar batteries. And so we should just flood the market and just completely price eliminate every other European producer. And it's become an issue. It's become an oversupply issue in Europe.
So this is a great example of market analysis,
Exactly.
competitive research, because you understood that the UK market is actually giving you grants, and you understand that there's basically a lot of competition that is not using this, right? We're like, oh, we produce sustainably in European Union. We have a German factory. No one cares.
Yep.
As long as it's cheaper and China is shipping it, let's do it.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, do you want me to get historical with this?
No, next time.
Well, we'll turn it into a topic itself. But I was going to talk about why the shift away from secondary manufacturing happened within all the Western countries, and then it got outsourced to the other countries. It mainly had to do with people saying, oh, labor's too expensive, we'll have to abide by labor rights. And now China just dominates because service industries go up and down, they come and go, and there's very little stability in this, but people always need physical goods.
Yeah, but it's just too many people there. So I understand the human resource, outsourcing human resource to China is a win situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was studying in university, the people who used to call me up from like the bursar's office or the you need to sign up for this thing and fill out this form, those kind of people, all outsourced.
Yeah, interesting. But this is, again, ties very well into the market analysis and competitive research.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on your list?
I mean, I do. I haven't even gotten to my actual examples.
Tell me.
Then there's, this one's market competition analysis, right? So Coke and Pepsi have been like at war with each other since, time began. And Coke had already captured most of the market, and Pepsi needed to enter it properly. And what they started doing was targeting different racial demographics. Coca-Cola was already really popular among white people, so Pepsi became really popular among among black people, and they literally called their department Negro Markets Department. So then there was things like they would hire black celebrities to be in their ads, obviously. Promotional material appeared in segregated locations that served both races, but rarely in those that catered to African Americans alone for Coke. So they found that they could place ads in segregated neighborhoods and be just as like popular among black people.
That happens so much as well with the movies, right? You had there was a very nice movie I've seen where there was as well a black dude, and he said, "Why do we watch this white people trash? No one likes it." And then he basically created a movie, or like produced a movie that was super popular in the black communities and black community theaters.
The entire blaxploitation movement is based around that.
Yeah, and that's where the white people came in. It was all in the US, obviously. They came in, it's like, oh, we have to buy this movie so we can make a lot of money, and now suddenly, we're friends and so on. But this guy didn't agree with them.
This continued up until the 90s before everything got homogenized by the big studios, but there was a category of like hood movies, like stuff like New Jack City. These were all movies made by black people for black people, ostensibly, but they got so popular that big studios were just like, we're going to make our version of those.
Do you think they did market research?
they understood that people were buying tickets for this, and religiously the same people would go see the movie 2-3 times, because they were like, oh, we've never seen anything like this. It's fresh, it's new. And these in the 90s, at least, there were all these massive black action movie stars, Wesley Snipes and Denzel.
So that's the way they would do, probably, is just revenue driven. Obviously, they do
Yeah,
have a lot of analysis and analytical tools. So they're like, we make money when we do this. So it's kind of like one shot, one kill, or big risks, I guess.
Yeah, and this is just how it always works in these markets. Like, who had this joke? It was some comedian. I think it was Shane Gillis. He was like, slavery ended, but it took a long time for them to realize you were good at sports, and then they liked you.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So this is all market driven, they never considered. They always consider a certain segment to be less economically desirable. But another example from the movie industry and China again, because apparently we're just going to have to call this podcast now China Cast. But there was this massive movie in the 90s. You remember Waterworld?
No. Oh, wait, it rings a bell, but I cannot recall.
It was a Kevin Costner movie, and it's about like global warming happens, and the entire Earth is flooded by water. Everybody lives on boats and ships, and you have sea pirates that were the main sort of like force in this world, and they're just like taking over everything. That movie flopped in theaters, and but what Hollywood found out is, the newly opened Chinese market, they could just flood any movie that flops and put it in theaters, and Chinese people become a lucrative market, because the population is that high as well, So previously they used to just make movies for domestic markets, and then it's got more and more global. And it's gotten ridiculous because there are certain movies that were only made to be for the Chinese market. We already know directors rewrite movies to appeal more to China. Mm-hmm. For example, there was this movie, really good movie, Looper. Did you ever watch it?
Mm-mm.
It's a movie about time travel, and there's this line where the guy says, "Oh, I'm moving to France," and the guy from the future says, "You're moving to China." And he says, "I don't want to move to China." He says, "You're moving to China. Trust me, I'm from the future."
Okay.
But that line wasn't originally there. They added and shifted locations to China for a little bit, for a few shots, and changed the races of certain characters just to appeal to the Chinese market. Apparently.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I understand. There were so many examples of that, but this is also a very interesting way to do your marketing research, right? So you're like, oh, this is going to appeal, this is going to raise, the movie and the sales.
Back in the case of Waterworld, it was exploration of new markets, and then in the case of like something like Looper, or there's this other movie they made called The Wall. You ever seen this one?
No.
It's like Matt Damon was in it, and I never watched it myself. All I knew was they made it specifically like market tested for Chinese audiences. Big blockbuster. It's going to have a giant wall in it for a while. You can imagine which reason.
Yeah.
There's going to be a huge war in it, and this guy goes to this like far-off village and learns their ways. That kind of story. I think. I haven't watched it. Somebody else who has. But all I know about it is they created that because they were market testing for China.
I see how that can be. Well, of course, you have to know your audience, right? But again, back then, it was not as easy as it is now because, well, obviously, the digital age, and it's much easier to do that.
All right. Aside from that, I also have this example from this company that was called Qualcomm. Yeah. And this is a failure in market research.
Uh-huh.
This is a failure in innovations research. Because, it's easy to say failure after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what they were producing was an early version of cell phones, but they were very much more hardware intensive. So you would have this phone that you could carry around, and anywhere where there was this antenna, any house that had it, would create an area a radius of a certain amount, and you could just use your phone there and ping from there to any other antenna in the world. And you could do this for any single antenna. So you as long as there was an antenna nearby, you could use it like a point for your cell phone. Modern cell phones have satellite and all this and GSM, all these telecom towers. Their version was an early version of this, and they were trying to sell these to people. And in a different world, maybe that would have been the dominant model. There would be like such a propensity of these antennae everywhere. But then we moved on to these other cell phones, the modern version, where it's actually linked up to all these other different telecommunications devices. But yeah, their version would have required an installation of those antennae everywhere, and they were planning everyone's house to have it, and sort of a decentralized version of telecom towers, if you can believe that. Sort of like you would have one, they would have one, and they would have one, and together you would come up with this like giant network. Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
But their failure happened because, the cell phones
came. New tech, they were a little bit too late to the race, but some people were trying to reinvent the wheel even a few years back with the helium, which is as well human driven network or something like that. So basically they said we're going to put a lot of low frequency signals in the areas that has like it depends on the antenna you use.
Yeah.
So you got 3 to 10 kilometer radius, and then anyone who has a low frequency sensors in the area, like a lot of construction workers use it as well to measure temperature or wind or whatever. Everyone can connect to this network and use it for free or something like that. And if someone connects to it, you as an antenna owner from your balcony or something, you get a cut from it. So it's a very interesting idea as well. But again, depends, in your case, the mobile phones were much faster. In this case, LoRaWAN, which is low frequency signals, they're very popular, but they're still very expensive to actually use and much more complicated. It's your smart home, right? So if you have a hub or something, sometimes they use the low frequency signals to communicate, because you have like a sensor, it has a very small battery in it, and that's what basically in your house, how it communicates with the central hub.
It's a similar concept, actually.
It is, like it's being used, just we don't know about it.
Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about was that we had a course in my master's about competitive research, and they drew a clear line. They're like, this is what's legal, this is what's illegal. You can't break into a facility, but if you're invited in.
Fair. Cybersecurity 101.
Yep. The other thing is they taught us is everything on Google Maps is a fair game. They use that to judge, okay, their factory is this size, unless there's an underground facility.
That makes sense.
You know how much they can produce per square footage,
How many production lines can they fit?
Similarly, you can just go to City Hall, get the plans for a building or something. That's fair.
That's fair.
Any patent that you can see, you can get that, and then use that to counter-produce a product, to exactly avoid what's in the patent.
That's a good point.
So
free material.
It's free material. It's there. It's out there. Most things they post on their own LinkedIn is free, for you to use. Yeah, you can derive a lot of it from that. It's like a really a B-movie version of a James Bond movie, but we'll take it.
Yeah. Well, some people will say, "Oh, there's a knockoff. I want to watch it." Have a nice closing joke for you.
What you got?
Why did the startup team never conduct competitive research? Because they figured their own echo chamber as all the validation they needed.
That's a good one. That's a good one. A business team joke.
Yes.
They're not usually funny, but
it's okay. This will go. Well, thank you everyone for joining on the episode 9. I pray that we're much better than 90% of the people who started a podcast. So I'm quite happy about that.
We're adding our decades.
Yes, we're doing very well this year. So join again probably in a month, and we're not sure what's going to be the topic, but thank you for listening. Follow us on any social media as well, because we're publishing quite a lot. And if you want to reach out just to have a conversation, feel free to do that, and we'll be happy. If we have any kind of feedback, like there was one comment that said, "You guys suck." and on YouTube, and I actually like that because there is feedback.